The Facebook notification came while I was washing dishes on a Tuesday night, my hands buried in soapy water, steam rising from the sink. My phone lit up on the counter, and I almost ignored it. But something made me glance over, made me wipe my hands and pick it up. Sarah Morrison has a new friend request from David Morrison. The plate I was holding slipped from my fingers, crashing back into the sink with a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet kitchen. David Morrison, my ex-husband, the father of my daughter, Sarah. David Morrison, who died in a car accident 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days ago. I stood there, staring at my phone screen, watching the notification blink like it was alive.
Like it was taunting me.
My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely unlock the phone, but when I finally did, when I finally opened Facebook and navigated to Sarah's profile, there it was. A friend request from David's account. Sent 20 minutes ago. The profile picture was the same one from before he died. David at his brother's wedding, grinning in a dark suit, looking healthy and alive and impossibly young for a man who'd been 42. His timeline showed nothing new. The last post was from 3 years ago, a photo of him and Sarah at her 8th grade graduation. His final words to the world. So proud of this kid.
Can't wait to see what's next.
He never got to see what was next. A drunk driver had made sure of that. But someone was using his account now. Someone had logged in, scrolled through his friends list, and found my daughter. Someone had clicked Add Friend and sent that request into the universe, like a message from beyond the grave. I called Sarah immediately, my heart hammering against my ribs. Mom? She answered on the second ring, and I could hear music in the background, the sound of teenage laughter. What's up? I'm at Megan's. Did you get a friend request? My voice came out sharper than I intended. From your father's Facebook account? Silence. Then, how did you know about that? Sarah, did you accept it? Not yet. I was going to ask you about it first, but then I got distracted and she paused. Mom, what's going on? Is this some kind of memorial thing? Like, did you set up his account to send me messages or something?
No.
I sat down hard on one of the kitchen chairs. I haven't touched his account since he died. I don't even know the password. More silence. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was smaller, younger. Then who sent the request? That was the question, wasn't it? Let me back up, because you need to understand what David and I were before he died. What our family looked like from the outside and what it looked like from the inside. My name is Jennifer Morrison, and I married David when I was 23 and still believed in forever. He was everything I thought I wanted. Steady, reliable, good with money, good with his hands. He built our house himself, piece by piece, every nail and board placed with careful precision. We had Sarah when I was 25. She was planned, wanted, loved from the moment we knew she existed. David cried when she was born, held her like she was made of glass, promised her the world. And for 13 years we were fine. Not perfect, what marriage is.
But fine.
We paid our bills. We went to Sarah's school events. We had dinner together most nights. From the outside, we looked like any other middle-class family, trying to make it work. But inside our house, inside our marriage, things had started cracking years before David died. He was having an affair. I knew it, even though I never had proof, even though he denied it every time I asked. The late nights at work. The password-protected phone. The way he'd started showering immediately when he got home, before even saying hello to Sarah or me. I was planning to leave him. I'd opened a separate bank account. I'd talked to a lawyer. I was going to tell him the week after Sarah's 8th grade graduation. But then the accident happened, and David died, and I never got the chance to say, I know what you did. I know who you really were. And because he died, because Sarah lost her father at 14, I couldn't tell her the truth either. Couldn't shatter her image of the man who'd built her a treehouse and taught her to ride a bike and promised to walk her down the aisle someday. So I stayed quiet. I let her grieve a father who might not have deserved her grief. And I told myself it was the right thing to do. After I hung up with Sarah, after I told her not to accept the request, not to respond, to just leave it alone until I figured out what was happening, I did what I should have done immediately. I called David's brother, Marcus. Marcus and David had been close. Not just brothers, but best friends. Marcus had delivered the eulogy at David's funeral, his voice breaking as he talked about the brother he'd lost. He checked on Sarah and me constantly in those first few months, making sure we were okay, helping with repairs around the house, being the steady presence David had always been. "Jen," Marcus answered, and I could hear the surprise in his voice. We talked less frequently over the past year, both of us moving forward with our lives. "Everything okay?" "Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course. What's wrong? Have you been accessing David's Facebook account?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Marcus." "Jen, I can explain. You've been pretending to be my dead ex-husband on social media?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "You sent a friend request to Sarah from his account? What the hell were you thinking?" "I wasn't pretending to be him," Marcus said quickly. "I would never do that. I've been maintaining his account, keeping it active, making sure it doesn't get deleted or hacked or maintaining it by friend requesting his daughter. A daughter who thinks her father is dead. I wanted to stay connected to her, Jen. I wanted." He trailed off, and when he spoke again, his voice was different. Harder. "Sarah deserves to know who her father really was. And you've been keeping her from that truth." Ice flooded my veins. "What are you talking about?" "I know why you were going to divorce him," Marcus said. "David told me everything before he died. And I think it's time Sarah knew too." The kitchen felt like it was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table, my phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt. "You don't know anything," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "I know he was having an affair," Marcus said, each word careful and deliberate. "I know you'd hired a lawyer. I know you were planning to leave him right before the accident happened. If you know all that, then you know why I didn't tell Sarah. She was 14 years old, Marcus. She'd just lost her father. I wasn't going to destroy her memory of him on top of that grief. So, instead you let her worship a lie?" Marcus's voice rose. "You let her think David was some perfect dad who loved his family, when really He did love her," I interrupted. "Whatever else he was, he loved Sarah. That part wasn't a lie. But the rest was." Marcus exhaled slowly, and I could picture him pacing, the way he always did when he was agitated. "Jen, Sarah's 17 now. She's not a child anymore. She deserves to know the truth about her father, about who he really was, the good and the bad. That's not your decision to make. Maybe not. But it's not just yours either." There was something in his voice now, something I couldn't quite identify. "David was my brother. Sarah is my niece. I have a right to be part of her life, to have a relationship with her, and you've been shutting me out for the past year." He wasn't wrong about that. After the first anniversary of David's death, I'd started pulling away from Marcus, declining dinner invitations, keeping conversations brief, letting him fade from our lives like water evaporating in sunlight. I told myself it was because we needed space to heal. But the truth was simpler and uglier. Marcus reminded me too much of David. Same dark eyes, same laugh, same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. Looking at Marcus was like looking at a ghost, and I couldn't bear it. "So, you decided to catfish my daughter?" I asked. "Using your dead brother's Facebook account." "I'm not catfishing anyone. I just wanted to reach out to her. To talk to her. She stopped responding to my texts months ago, Jen. She won't take my calls. What was I supposed to do? Not this. I stood up and started pacing my own kitchen, moving past the refrigerator covered in Sarah's artwork and school photos, past the window where I could see the treehouse David had built still standing in the backyard, slowly rotting. Marcus, this is creepy. This is wrong. You can't just access someone's account and pretend. I have the password, Marcus said flatly. David gave it to me years ago. He asked me to look after his digital stuff if anything ever happened to him. I'm not hacking anything. I'm doing what my brother asked me to do. Looking after his accounts doesn't mean using them to manipulate his daughter. I'm not manipulating her. His voice cracked. I'm trying to maintain a connection with my niece because her mother won't let me see her anymore. Is that so wrong? The desperation in his voice gave me pause. I stopped pacing and leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. Marcus, I said quietly. Why now? It's been 3 years. Why reach out to Sarah through Facebook now? Another long silence. Then, because I found something. In David's things. Something Sarah needs to see. My blood went cold. What things? Letters. A journal. Some photos. Marcus's voice dropped lower. Things he left behind that explain everything. About the affair. About why he did what he did. About what he was planning before he died. I don't want Sarah to see any of that. That's exactly why she needs to, Marcus countered. Jen, you can't protect her from reality forever. She's almost an adult. She's going to find out eventually that her father wasn't perfect. Wouldn't it be better if she learned the truth from family rather than stumbling across it some other way? He had a point, much as I hated to admit it. But I also knew what those letters probably contained. Justifications. Excuses. Maybe even details about the woman David had been seeing, the one I'd never been able to identify. I need to think about this, I said finally. Think fast, Marcus said. Because I'm done waiting, Jen. I'm done being shut out of Sarah's life. If you won't tell her the truth, I will. One way or another. He hung up before I could respond. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark living room, scrolling through David's Facebook profile on my laptop, looking at 3 years of silence. His last post. Sarah's graduation photo. The comments underneath from people who had no idea he'd be dead within a week. Congratulations. And beautiful girl. And you must be so proud. I scrolled further back. David at Marcus's wedding, looking happy and healthy. David and me on our 15th anniversary, his arm around my waist, both of us smiling for the camera. You couldn't see the cracks in the photo. You couldn't see that I'd already started sleeping in the guest room by then. There were photos of Sarah throughout her childhood. First day of kindergarten. Halloween costumes. Family vacations to the beach. A whole digital archive of a life that looked perfect from the outside. And now Marcus wanted to shatter that illusion. Wanted to show Sarah the letters, the journal, the evidence of her father's infidelity. Wanted her to know that the man who'd built her a treehouse had also destroyed his marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Mom, I got another message. From Dad's account. It's weird. Can you come to Megan's? Please? My hands started shaking again. On my way, I typed back. Megan's house was a 15-minute drive, but I made it in 10. Sarah met me at the door, her phone in her hand, her face pale in the porch light. Look, she said, not even saying hello first. She held out her phone, and I saw a Facebook Messenger conversation open. From David Morrison's account. Hi, sweetheart. I know this is strange, but there are some things about your dad you should know. Things your mom hasn't told you. I can explain everything if you give me a chance. And then, sent just minutes ago, Your dad wasn't who you think he was. But he loved you more than anything. Let me show you.
Please.
Mom, Sarah said, her voice shaking. What's going on? What things haven't you told me? I looked at my daughter, almost 18 now, almost an adult, with David's eyes and my stubborn chin, and her own unique way of tilting her head when she was confused or scared. She deserved the truth.
Marcus was right about that.
But the truth was complicated and painful, and once I told her, I could never take it back. Get your jacket, I said finally. We need to go somewhere. Where? To see your Uncle Marcus. It's time we all had a conversation. Marcus lived in the same house he'd grown up in with David, the house their parents had left them when they died. It was after 11 when we pulled up, but his lights were still on. He answered the door on my second knock, unsurprised to see us. I figured you'd come tonight, he said, stepping back to let us in. He looked at Sarah with such naked longing it hurt to see. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Uncle Marcus. Sarah's voice was small, uncertain. She hadn't seen him in over a year, and I could tell she felt guilty about that. We sat in Marcus's living room, the same room where I'd attended David's wake 3 years ago, where family and friends had gathered to share memories of a man they thought they knew. Sarah, I started, but Marcus interrupted. Let me, he said. He pulled out a cardboard box from beside the couch. Your dad left these for me. Asked me to keep them safe. I think he knew, somehow, that he might not get the chance to explain things himself. He opened the box and pulled out a journal, worn at the edges, filled with David's familiar handwriting. Sarah stared at the journal like it might bite her. What is that? Your father's journal, Marcus said gently. He started keeping it about a year before he died. He wanted to process things. Figure things out. Figure what out? Sarah looked at me, then back at Marcus. What are you guys talking about? I wanted to stop this. Wanted to grab that journal and the box and throw them in the fireplace. But Marcus was already opening it, already turning pages until he found what he was looking for. Your dad made some mistakes, Marcus said. Big ones. He hurt your mom badly, and he knew it. He was trying to fix things, but he ran out of time. Marcus, I said, a warning in my voice. But Sarah was already reaching for the journal. Let me see. Marcus handed it to her, and I watched my daughter read her father's words, watched her expression shift from confusion to shock to something that looked like grief all over again. I've been such a fool, the entry began. David's handwriting sprawled across the page, less careful than usual, like he'd been writing quickly, desperately. I almost destroyed the best thing in my life, for something that meant nothing. Jennifer deserves so much better than what I've given her. Sarah's eyes moved down the page, and I could see when she reached the next part, because her breath hitched. The affair is over. I ended it tonight. Told Kay that I couldn't do this anymore, that I needed to save my marriage, that my daughter deserved a father who wasn't a liar and a cheat. She didn't take it well, but I don't care. I just want my wife back. I want my family back. Dad was cheating? Sarah looked up at me, her eyes shining with tears. You knew. I suspected, I said quietly. I didn't have proof until after he died, when I went through his things. And you didn't tell me? You were 14, baby. You just lost your father. How could I tell you that he'd been? I couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah looked back down at the journal, flipping pages. Marcus didn't stop her. He just sat there, watching, like this was exactly what he'd wanted to happen. Another entry, dated a week before David died. I told Marcus everything today. About the affair, about Jennifer planning to leave me, about how badly I've screwed up. He said I need to come clean, need to tell Jen the whole truth before she finds out some other way.
He's right.
I'm going to do it this weekend. I'm going to tell her everything and beg her to give me one more chance. He was going to tell you, Marcus said, looking at me. He was going to confess everything and ask you to stay. But he died first, I said flatly. And you never got to have that conversation. Marcus leaned forward. Jen, I know you think he was just a cheater, just a liar.
But he was more complicated than that.
He loved you.
He really did.
He just lost his way for a while. Who was Kay? Sarah asked suddenly, still staring at the journal. He keeps mentioning Kay.
Who was that?
Marcus and I exchanged a glance. This was the part I dreaded most. We don't know, I said, which was true. Your father never told Marcus, and I never found out. But Sarah was already flipping through more pages, reading faster now, looking for clues. And then she stopped, her face going pale. Oh my God, she whispered. What? I moved to look over her shoulder. There, in David's handwriting, Kay showed up at the house today while Jen was at work. She wanted to talk, wanted me to reconsider. I told her it's over, that she needs to move on.
She said she can't.
She said she'll wait for me as long as it takes. I told her she's wasting her time. God, what have I done? What kind of person was I to let this go on so long? She came to our house. Sarah's voice was rising. This woman, whoever she was, came to our house? Sarah. What else didn't you tell me, Mom? What other secrets are there? That's why I'm here, Marcus said, and there was something in his voice that made me turn to look at him fully. Something I should have noticed before. Because there's one more thing you both need to know. About who Kay was. About why David felt so guilty. My stomach dropped. Marcus, what are you talking about? He reached into the box again and pulled out a photograph. It was old, the colors slightly faded. It showed David and Marcus as teenagers, maybe 15 and 17, standing with their arms around each other's shoulders. And between them, smiling at the camera, was a girl with dark hair and familiar eyes. Marcus's eyes. This is Karen, Marcus said quietly. My ex-girlfriend. The girl I dated all through high school and college. The girl I was planning to marry. The room tilted. No, I said. David had an affair with your ex-girlfriend? Sarah asked, her voice incredulous. It wasn't like that, Marcus said quickly. Or at least it didn't start like that. Karen and I broke up about 10 years ago. We stayed friends. She was at my wedding. She knew your parents, Sarah. She'd been to your house for barbecues and birthday parties. I remembered her suddenly. Karen Hughes. Quiet, pretty, always friendly. She'd moved away 8 or 9 years ago, and I'd lost track of her. She came back to town about 2 years before David died, Marcus continued. She was going through a divorce. She reached out to me for support, and I introduced her to David again. They started meeting for coffee, talking about their problems. And somewhere along the way, he trailed off. They started sleeping together. I finished, my voice hollow. I didn't know, Marcus said, and I could hear the pain in his voice. David didn't tell me until that conversation a week before he died. And by then it was already over. Karen had moved away again. The affair had ended. But you knew, I said. You've known for 3 years that your brother betrayed you too. That he slept with the woman you loved. Yes. And you never told me. I didn't see the point. Marcus looked down at his hands. David was dead. Karen was gone. What good would it do to tell you that your husband's affair was with my ex? It just added another layer of hurt to an already terrible situation. Sarah was crying silently now, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her father's journal. Why are you telling us this now? Why drag all this up? Because I've been angry, Marcus said simply. For 3 years, I've been carrying this anger around. Angry at David for betraying both of us. Angry at Karen for throwing away what we had. angry at myself for introducing them in the first place. He looked at Sarah. And angry at you, Jen, for shutting me out, for taking away the only family I had left. So, this is revenge? I asked. You're destroying Sarah's image of her father as some kind of payback for me not letting you in our lives?
No.
Marcus's voice was firm. This is truth. Sarah deserves to know who her father really was. Not the sanitized version you've been feeding her. Not the perfect dad who could do no wrong. She deserves the whole truth, the affair, the guilt, the fact that he was trying to be better when he died. Sarah stood up suddenly, the journal falling from her lap onto Marcus's coffee table. I need air, she said, her voice shaking. I need to think. She walked out onto Marcus's front porch, and I started to follow, but Marcus caught my arm. Give her a minute, he said. She needs to process this. I yanked my arm away. Don't tell me what my daughter needs. You've done enough damage for one night. Have I? Marcus stood up, and for the first time, I saw real anger in his face. Not the calm, reasonable Marcus who'd been explaining things, but raw, unfiltered rage. I told her the truth, Jen. Something you should have done years ago. She was a child. She's not a child anymore. His voice rose. She's 17 years old, almost 18. She's going to college next year. She's going to have relationships and make her own mistakes and try to figure out who she is. And how is she supposed to do any of that when half her understanding of the world is built on a lie? A lie I told to protect her. No, Marcus said, his voice dropping to something cold and hard. A lie you told to protect yourself. Because as long as Sarah thought David was perfect, you got to be the victim. The poor widow whose husband died before you could work things out. But if Sarah knew the truth, that you were planning to leave him, that you'd already given up on the marriage, then you'd have to face your own guilt. The words hit me like a slap. How dare you? It's true, isn't it? Marcus stepped closer. You feel guilty that you were planning to divorce him. Guilty that your last thoughts about David before he died weren't, I love him, but I want out. So you turned him into a saint to make yourself feel better about that guilt. Get out of my way, I said, my voice shaking. I'm taking Sarah home. She doesn't want to go home with you right now. You don't speak for my daughter. Then ask her yourself. I pushed past him and went out to the porch. Sarah was sitting on the steps, her arms wrapped around her knees, staring out at the dark street. I sat down beside her, leaving space between us. Baby, I said softly, I'm sorry. I should have told you about your father. I should have been honest. Why weren't you? Sarah's voice was flat, distant. All this time, I've been grieving someone who didn't even exist. The dad I remember, the one who built the treehouse and taught me to ride a bike. Was any of that real? Or was it all just part of his lie? It was real, I said firmly. Sarah, your father loved you. That was never fake. The affair, the mistakes he made, none of that had anything to do with you. But it had to do with you. Sarah turned to look at me, and in the porch light, she looked so much like David had hurt. Uncle Marcus said you were planning to leave Dad. Is that true? I couldn't lie anymore. Yes. Why? Because I was unhappy. Because I'd suspected the affair for months, and he kept denying it. Because I felt like I was living with a stranger who looked like my husband but wasn't the person I'd married. I took a breath. But Sarah, I was going to talk to your father about you first. About custody, about making sure the divorce didn't hurt you. Everything I did was to protect you. Except telling me the truth. Except that, I admitted. I should have told you. Not right after he died, but eventually. You deserve to know. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Sarah said, I've been messaging someone online. For the past 6 months. On a grief support forum. Someone who lost their dad too. Something cold settled in my stomach. Okay. We talked about everything. About missing our dads. About trying to move forward. About feeling guilty for living when they couldn't. Sarah picked at a thread on her jeans. Her name is Katie. At least, that's what she told me. Sarah, where is this going? Katie knew things about me. Specific things. She knew about the treehouse. She knew what Dad looked like. She knew details about his accident that weren't public. Sarah finally looked at me. I think Katie was Karen. I think your husband's mistress has been talking to me for 6 months, pretending to be my friend. The world stopped. That's impossible, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew it wasn't. How would she even know how to find you? Mom, everyone's online. Everyone's on social media. It wouldn't be hard to find me. Sarah's voice was getting higher, more panicked. She's been in my head for 6 months, asking me questions about you, about our family, about what Dad was like. Oh my God, I told her everything. I pulled out my phone. What's her username? Show me. Sarah opened her phone with shaking hands and navigated to the grief support forum. The profile was sparse, just a generic flower as the profile picture. The username KDM_2007 and a bio that said, "Lost my dad in 2022. Just trying to find my way." The messages between Sarah and Katie went back 6 months, just like Sarah said. Dozens of conversations, each one carefully building trust, getting Sarah to open up. Your mom seems like she's really strong, one message said. Does she ever talk about your dad? About their marriage? Not really, Sarah had replied. I think it hurts too much. She barely mentions him anymore. That must be hard for you.
Not being able to talk about him.
It is. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing my memories of him. Like if I don't talk about him, he'll disappear completely. I felt sick reading it. Sarah, have you ever video chatted with this person? Have you ever seen her face?
No.
She always said she wasn't ready for that she needed to stay anonymous. Sarah looked at me. It's her, isn't it? It's Karen. I don't know, I said honestly, but we're going to find out. I stood up and went back inside. Marcus was still in the living room, the box of David's things on the floor beside him. Where is Karen now? I demanded. Do you know how to reach her? Marcus looked confused. Last I heard, she was living in Portland. Why? Because I think she's been catfishing my daughter online for the past 6 months. I explained quickly about the grief forum, about Katie, about all the detailed questions Karen had been asking. Marcus's face went pale.
No.
Karen wouldn't do that. She's not that kind of person. You dated her for how long? 10 years? And you didn't know she was capable of sleeping with your brother. I pulled out my phone. What's her number? Jen, you can't just call her and accuse her. Watch me. Marcus reluctantly gave me Karen's number, and I dialed it right there in his living room, with Sarah standing in the doorway watching. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. This is Karen. Leave a message. The voice was familiar. Pleasant, friendly. The same voice I remembered from barbecues and birthday parties years ago. The same voice that had probably been in my house while David and I slept upstairs. Karen, this is Jennifer Morrison, I said after the beep. We need to talk. About David. About Sarah. About the grief support forum and the girl named Katie you've been messaging. Call me back. Tonight. I hung up and looked at Marcus. If she doesn't call back, I'm driving to Portland tomorrow. Jen, you don't even know if it's really her.
My phone rang.
Unknown number. I answered it on speaker. Hello. Hi, Jennifer. Karen's voice, tentative and soft. I've been expecting this call. The room went silent. Sarah's eyes were wide, fixed on my phone. Marcus looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. You've been expecting this call? I repeated, my voice dangerous and low. That's all you have to say? I know you're angry, Karen said. I know what I did was wrong. But if you'll just let me explain. Explain what? How you've been manipulating my daughter for 6 months. How you've been using a fake name to get information about my family. I was gripping the phone so hard my hand hurt. What were you trying to accomplish, Karen? What did you possibly think would come from this? I just wanted to know she was okay, Karen said, and her voice cracked. I just wanted to know that David's daughter was doing all right, that she wasn't suffering too much. You don't get to care about my daughter. The words exploded out of me. You slept with her father. You helped destroy my marriage. You don't get to pretend you have some kind of maternal concern for her. I'm not pretending. Karen was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. I know I have no right. I know what I did was unforgivable. But David talked about Sarah constantly, about how smart she was, how funny, how much he loved her. And after he died, after everything fell apart, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about how she was coping with losing him. So you decided to befriend her online under a fake name? Sarah spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. You thought that was the appropriate response? Sarah, Karen breathed. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. By lying to me? By pretending to be someone you're not? By asking me questions about my family while pretending to be my friend? Sarah's voice was rising. I told you things, Karen. Personal things. Things I haven't told anyone else. And you were just, what? Gathering information.
No.
It wasn't like that. I genuinely cared about what you were going through. I wanted to help. You wanted to feel less guilty, I interrupted. You wanted to assuage your conscience about the affair by making sure Sarah was okay. But you were too much of a coward to face her honestly, so you hid behind a fake profile instead. That's not fair. Fair. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? You had an affair with my husband, Karen. With Marcus's brother. You helped blow up 2 families, and now you're upset that I'm not being fair to you. Marcus had been silent through all of this, but now he spoke up. Karen, why didn't you just call me? If you wanted to know how Sarah was doing, why didn't you ask me? Because you hate me, Marcus. You made that very clear the last time we spoke. Karen's voice was bitter. After David died, when you found out about the affair, you told me you never wanted to see me again. That I destroyed the most important relationship in your life. How was I supposed to come to you asking about his daughter? So you went behind everyone's backs instead, Marcus said. That's so like you, Karen. Always taking the path of least resistance, no matter who it hurts. That's not true. It is true. Marcus stood up, pacing now. You did the same thing with David. Instead of being honest about your feelings, instead of dealing with the fact that you still had feelings for me, you slept with my brother and told yourself it was just physical. That it didn't mean anything. I loved him, Karen said quietly, and the words hung in the air like a confession. Everyone froze. What? Marcus's voice was barely audible. I loved David, Karen repeated, stronger now. Not at first. At first it really was just comfort. 2 people who were lonely and sad, and looking for escape. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with him. Really, truly in love. Jesus Christ, I whispered. And before you ask, Karen continued. Yes, he knew. I told him. That's why he ended things. Not just because he wanted to save his marriage, but because I'd made it too complicated, too real. He told me he cared about me, but that he loved you, Jennifer. That he loved Sarah. That he wanted his family back. So, You've been pining for my dead husband for 3 years? I asked, the anger draining out of me, replaced by exhaustion. Is that what this is? You befriended Sarah because you couldn't let David go. I don't know, Karen admitted. Maybe. Maybe I just wanted to feel close to him again, and talking to Sarah was the only way to do that. Maybe I'm pathetic and broken, and I should have just left you all alone. She took a shaky breath. But I didn't. And now I've hurt Sarah, and I've hurt you, and I've probably destroyed any remaining shred of respect Marcus had for me. So, congratulations, Jennifer. You get to be right about me being a terrible person. This isn't about being right, I said tiredly. This is about you getting help, Karen. Because what you did, catfishing a grieving teenager, lying to her for months, that's not normal behavior. That's not something a healthy person does. I know, Karen whispered. Sarah had been silent for the past few minutes, just standing there processing everything. Now she spoke up, her voice small and hurt. Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just a way for you to feel connected to my dad? I cared, Karen said immediately. Sarah, I know you have no reason to believe me, but I genuinely cared about what you were going through. Your messages about struggling with grief, about feeling alone, about wondering if it would ever get better. I felt all of that too. That part was real. But Katie wasn't real, Sarah said. The person I thought I was talking to. She doesn't exist. No, Karen admitted. She doesn't. I need you to delete the account, Sarah said, her voice stronger now. Delete Katie. Delete all our messages. And I need you to leave me alone.
Don't contact me again.
Not on social media, not through anyone else. Just let me go. Okay, Karen said. I will. I promise. And, Karen? Sarah's voice was ice. I hope you find a way to move on from my dad. Because he's gone. And wherever he is, I don't think he'd want you to waste your life being in love with a ghost. Sarah walked away then, out of Marcus's house and down the front steps. I heard our car door open and close. She was waiting for me. Karen, I said into the phone. Get help. See a therapist. Figure out why you thought any of this was okay. And stay away from my daughter. I hung up before she could respond. Marcus was sitting on his couch, his head in his hands. I'm sorry, he said without looking up. I should have known. I should have checked on Karen, made sure she was handling everything okay. If I had, maybe this wouldn't have happened. This isn't your fault, I said, and I meant it. Karen made her own choices. Just like David did. Just like I did. I looked at the box of David's things still sitting on the floor. Can I take those? The journal and the photos. Why? Because Sarah deserves to read them. All of them. Not just the parts you cherry-picked to prove whatever point you were trying to make. I picked up the box. And, Marcus? Thank you for telling us the truth. I'm angry about how you did it, but you were right. Sarah needed to know. Marcus looked up at me, his eyes red. Are we okay? You and me? I don't know, I said honestly. You used David's Facebook account to manipulate me into this confrontation. You've been carrying around anger and resentment for 3 years without telling me. That's not okay, Marcus. That's not how family treats each other. I know, but I continued. You're also the only connection Sarah has left to her father. And despite everything, despite all the lies and the affair and the catfishing and the drama, you're still her uncle. And she needs you in her life. I adjusted the box in my arms. So, we're going to figure this out. All of us. But it's going to take time, and it's going to require you being honest from now on. No more secrets. No more manipulation.
Can you do that?
Yes, Marcus said. I can do that. Sarah didn't speak on the drive home. She sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the dark streets sliding past, her phone in her lap, silent and dark. I wanted to say something comforting, something wise, something that would make this hurt less. But there were no words for what she was feeling. Her father had been unfaithful. Her uncle had catfished her using her dead father's account. And a woman she'd trusted, a friend she'd confided in for 6 months, had been her father's mistress all along. Some betrayals are too big for words. When we got home, Sarah went straight to her room. I heard the door close, not slammed but firmly shut. A clear message: I need space. I set the box of David's things on the kitchen table and made myself tea I would drink. Then I sat in the dark living room, the same room where I'd scrolled through David's Facebook profile just hours ago, and I cried. Not for David. Not for the marriage that had been dying long before he crashed his car on a rainy Tuesday night. I cried for Sarah, for the loss of her innocence, for the image of her father that had been shattered tonight, for the friend named Katie who'd never existed, for all the pain I'd tried so hard to protect her from, but had only delayed. Around 2 in the morning, I heard Sarah's door open. She came down the stairs slowly, carefully, and found me still sitting in the dark. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Can you?"
No.
She sat down on the couch next to me, leaving that same careful space between us. "I've been reading Dad's journal. The whole thing." I'd brought the box up and left it outside her door hours ago, a peace offering or an apology, or maybe just an acknowledgement that she was old enough to handle the truth, however ugly it might be. "And?" I asked carefully. "He really loved you," Sarah said. "Like, really loved you." The last entries, the ones from the days before he died, they're all about how much he regretted the affair, how much he wanted to fix things, how scared he was that he'd lost you forever. I know. Do you think you would have forgiven him if he'd lived long enough to tell you the truth? It was the question I'd been asking myself for 3 years. The question that had kept me up at night, that had colored every memory of David in shades of what if and maybe. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I want to say yes. I want to believe that I would have heard him out, that we could have gone to counseling, that we could have rebuilt our marriage into something stronger." I paused. But the truth is, Sarah, I was so angry, so hurt. The trust was broken, and I don't know if it could have been repaired. So the marriage would have ended anyway. Maybe. Probably. I looked at her in the dim light from the street lamp filtering through the curtains. "Does that change how you feel about him?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how I feel about anything right now. I'm angry at him for cheating. I'm angry at you for lying to me about it. I'm angry at Uncle Marcus for the Facebook thing, and at Karen for being Katie." She pulled her knees up to her chest. "But I'm also just sad. Because I can't ask Dad about any of this. I can't yell at him or demand answers or tell him how much he hurt me. He's just gone, and I'm left trying to reconcile the Dad I remember with this person who did terrible things." "He was both," I said softly. "That's the hardest part. He was the dad who built you a treehouse and taught you to ride a bike. And he was also the husband who had an affair and lied about it. People aren't just one thing, Sarah. They're complicated and contradictory, and sometimes they do things that hurt the people they love most." "Like you lying to me for 3 years?" The words stung, but I deserved them.
Yes.
Like that. Sarah rested her chin on her knees. Karen, she asked me once if I thought my parents' marriage was happy. I told her I thought it was perfect, that you and Dad were soulmates. She laughed bitterly. "God, I was so naive." "You were a kid," I said. "You saw what we wanted you to see. That's not naive, that's just being a child. Which you were supposed to be." I'm not a child anymore. No, I agreed. You're not. We sat in silence for a while, both of us processing, both of us trying to figure out how to move forward from this point. I messaged Uncle Marcus, Sarah said finally. Told him I need time, but that I don't hate him. That I understand why he told us the truth, even if I don't love how he did it. That's very mature of you. Yeah, well, somebody in this family needs to be mature. She gave me a small, sad smile. I also blocked Katie, Karen on the grief forum. Deleted all our messages. I know she said she'd delete the account, but I didn't want to take any chances. Good. Mom. Sarah turned to look at me. Can I ask you something? Anything. If Dad had lived, if you had gotten divorced, would you have been happy? Eventually? I thought about that carefully. I think so. I think I would have grieved the loss of what we had, what I thought we had. But yes, eventually, I think I would have been happy. Maybe happier than I was in the marriage. Then maybe. Sarah trailed off, choosing her words carefully. Maybe the real tragedy isn't that Dad had an affair, or that he died before you could work things out. Maybe the tragedy is that you never got the chance to find out who you could be without him. The wisdom in her words surprised me. When did you get so wise? Probably around the time I found out my entire understanding of my family was built on lies, she said dryly. But there was no real bitterness in it. Just exhaustion and a kind of resigned acceptance. I'm sorry, I said. For all of it. For lying, for trying to protect you when what you really needed was the truth. For making you think your father was perfect when he was just human and flawed and trying his best, even when his best wasn't good enough. I know, Sarah said. She leaned over and rested her head on my shoulder, the way she used to when she was little and had a bad dream. I'm sorry, too, for shutting out Uncle Marcus, for being naive about Dad, for believing Katie was real. None of that is your fault, baby. I know, but I'm still sorry. We sat like that for a long time, mother and daughter, both of us wounded but still here, still together, still trying to figure out how to be a family when half of that family was gone, and the other half had been living in a carefully constructed fantasy. The sun was starting to rise when Sarah finally went back to bed. I stayed on the couch, watching the sky lighten through the window, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Is Sarah okay? Are you okay? I can't sleep. I stared at the message for a long moment before responding. We're processing. It's going to take time. I understand. I'm here if you need me. I know. I set my phone down and picked up David's journal from where Sarah had left it on the coffee table. I'd avoided reading it until now, afraid of what I might find, afraid of reliving the pain of those final months. But Sarah was right. I needed to know the whole truth, too. I opened it to a random page somewhere in the middle and started reading. March 15th. Jennifer asked me again today if I'm having an affair. She looked me right in the eye and asked, and I lied. Again. I saw the hurt in her face, the way she knew I was lying but couldn't prove it. I'm destroying her, piece by piece, and I don't know how to stop. Kay called 3 times today. I didn't answer. I told her last week that we need to slow down, that this is getting too complicated. She said she understood, but then she keeps calling, keeps texting, keeps showing up at places she knows I'll be. I don't know how I got here, how I became this person. The handwriting was messier than usual, like David had been writing quickly, urgently. I turned the page. March 22nd. Took Sarah to get ice cream after school today. She told me about this boy in her class who likes her, asked me what she should do. I gave her advice about being honest, about communication being the most important thing in any relationship. The irony wasn't lost on me. How do I tell my daughter to be honest when I've been lying to her mother for months? How do I teach her about integrity when I have none? I need to end this. Tomorrow. I'm going to tell Kay it's over. Really over this time. But there were more entries after that. More weeks of I'll end it tomorrow, and this is the last time, and I'm such a coward. David had been trapped in his own weakness, unable to end the affair, but unable to live with it either. I flipped toward the end, to the entries from the week before he died. May 3rd. Told Marcus everything today. Sat in his living room and confessed the whole thing. The affair with Karen, Jennifer planning to leave me, how badly I've destroyed my life. I thought he'd punch me. Maybe I wanted him to. But he just sat there looking at me like he didn't know who I was. You slept with Karen? He kept saying. My Karen? You knew how much I loved her, how much it hurt when we broke up, and you still. I tried to explain that it wasn't like that Karen and I were both broken and looking for comfort. But there's no explanation that makes it okay. I betrayed my wife. I betrayed my brother. I betrayed myself. Marcus said I need to tell Jennifer the truth. That she deserves to know before she finds out some other way.
He's right. He's always right.
I'm going to do it this weekend. After Sarah's graduation, I'm going to sit Jennifer down and tell her everything. About Karen, about the affair, about how sorry I am. And then I'm going to beg, literally get on my knees and beg for one more chance. I don't deserve it. I know I don't. But I love her. God, I love her so much. And I love Sarah. And I can't lose them. I won't survive losing them. My hands were shaking. David had been planning to confess. Planning to fight for our marriage. And then a drunk driver had run a red light, and David had died instantly, and I never got that conversation. Never got the confession or the apology or the chance to decide whether I could forgive him. I kept reading. May 6th. 3 more days until I tell Jennifer. I'm terrified. Marcus thinks she might forgive me eventually, but I don't know. I've seen the way she looks at me lately, like she's already planning her life without me in it.
But I have to try.
I have to at least try. Sarah asked me this morning if everything was okay between Jennifer and me. She said we seemed distant. I told her everything was fine, that adults just go through phases. Another lie. How many lies can one person tell before they forget who they really are? After graduation, I'm going to tell them both the truth. Sarah deserves to know too, eventually. Not right away. She's too young, and it would destroy her. But someday, when she's older, I want her to know that I made mistakes, but that I tried to fix them. That I loved her mother. That I loved her. That I was just a man who got lost and couldn't find his way back in time. That was the last entry. David died 2 days after writing those words. I closed the journal and sat there in the growing morning light, tears streaming down my face. Not for the marriage that had ended. Not for the affair or the betrayal or the years of lies. I cried for the conversation we never got to have, for the apology I never got to hear, for the chance at forgiveness that died with David on that rainy night. The next morning, Sarah and I made breakfast together. Pancakes, the way David used to make them on Sunday mornings, with chocolate chips and strawberries. We didn't talk about the night before. We just cooked and ate and cleaned up, moving around each other in the familiar rhythm of people who'd shared a kitchen for 17 years. I read the rest of Dad's journal last night, I said as I washed dishes. Sarah looked up from her phone. And he was planning to tell me the truth. The weekend after graduation. He was going to confess everything and ask for another chance. Do you think you would have given it to him? I've been thinking about that all morning. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But I think I would have at least listened. Given him the chance to explain. I turned off the water and dried my hands. And I think, eventually, I might have been able to forgive him. Not forget, I don't think you ever forget that kind of betrayal. but forgive, maybe. So, it's sad that he died before you got that chance. Yes, I agreed. It's incredibly sad. But Sarah, I've realized something. The conversation I needed to have with your father about the affair, about our marriage, about whether we could move forward, I can't have it anymore.
He's gone.
And I need to accept that and find a way to move forward without that closure. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Is that why you've been so angry for 3 years? Not just because Dad cheated, but because you never got to confront him about it. Partly, yes. I sat down across from her, but also because I felt guilty. Guilty that my last thoughts about your father before he died weren't loving ones. Guilty that I was planning to leave him. Guilty that I felt almost relieved when he died because it meant I didn't have to go through a messy divorce. Mom, I know how that sounds, I said quickly. I'm not saying I wanted him to die. I would never want that. But there was a part of me that felt like his death solved a problem I didn't know how to solve myself. And I've been carrying that guilt around for 3 years, trying to make up for it by turning him into a saint in your eyes. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. You're not a bad person for feeling that way. You're just human. So was your father, I said. That's what I should have told you from the beginning. That he was human and flawed and complicated. That he made terrible mistakes but was trying to be better. That love isn't simple or easy or perfect. I'm glad I know now, Sarah said. Even though it hurts. Even though I wish Katie had been real and Dad had been faithful and Uncle Marcus hadn't catfished me with a dead man's Facebook account. She smiled sadly. At least now I know the truth. After breakfast, Sarah said she was going to Megan's house. I need to tell her everything. She's been my best friend since kindergarten. She deserves to know why I've been such a mess lately. Okay, I said. Call me if you need anything. I will. She paused at the door. Mom? We're going to be okay, right? I looked at my daughter, almost 18, almost an adult, standing on the threshold of a life that would be filled with disappointments and betrayals and truths she didn't want to hear. But also love and growth and the hard-won wisdom that comes from surviving the things that break your heart. Yes, I said. We're going to be okay. After Sarah left, I called Marcus. Jen. He answered on the first ring, his voice cautious. I'm not calling to yell at you, I said. I just wanted to let you know that Sarah's okay. We talked last night. She's hurt, but she'll be okay. Thank God. I heard him exhale. I've been worried sick. I thought maybe I destroyed my relationship with her permanently. You came close, I said honestly. But Sarah's resilient. She gets that from her father. The words felt strange to say, acknowledging David's good qualities after a night spent confronting his worst ones. Marcus, we need to figure out a new normal. For Sarah's sake. Maybe family dinners once a month? Or coffee. Just the 3 of us. I'd like that, Marcus said quietly. I'd really like that. But Marcus? No more secrets. No more catfishing or Facebook messages or manipulation. If you want to be part of our lives, you have to be honest.
Can you do that?
I can, he said. I promise. Good. Because Sarah needs her uncle. And honestly, I need my brother-in-law. David's gone, but you're still here. And we're still family, however messy and complicated that family might be. We are, Marcus agreed, his voice thick with emotion. We really are. I'll text you some dates, I said. We'll figure this out. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and navigated to Facebook for what I knew would be the last time. I found David's profile, looked at that final post one more time. Him and Sarah at graduation, both of them smiling, both of them unaware that they had only 7 more days together. And then I did something I should have done 3 years ago. I changed David's privacy settings so his profile would be memorialized. No more logging in. No more messages sent from beyond the grave. No more Marcus or Karen or anyone else accessing the account to manipulate the past. Just a digital monument to a man who'd been imperfect and flawed and human. I wrote a final post on his timeline. David, I hope wherever you are, you've found peace. I hope you know that Sarah is strong and beautiful and brilliant, and she's going to be okay. We both are. You weren't perfect, and neither was our marriage, but you loved us the best way you knew how. Thank you for the good memories. I'm choosing to hold on to those. I didn't mention the affair. Didn't mention Karen or the lies or the pain. Just a simple acknowledgement of the man he'd been. All of him. The good and the bad. Then I closed the laptop and walked outside. The treehouse David had built was still standing in the backyard, weathered and aging, but somehow still solid. I'd been meaning to tear it down for years. Couldn't bear to look at it. This monument to a father Sarah had lost too soon. But now, standing in the morning light, I realized it didn't have to be torn down. It could just be what it was, a treehouse. A structure made of wood and nails, and a father's love for his daughter. Imperfect, showing its age, but still standing. Like us. I climbed the ladder, something I hadn't done in years, and sat in the small space David had created. There were Sarah's initials carved into the wood, next to David's. A promise of forever made in childhood, before she knew that forever doesn't always mean what we think it means. I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Not for Facebook or Instagram or any public display. Just for me. A reminder that even broken things can still stand. That even imperfect love is still love. That we survive. If you're listening to this story, I want you to know something. The truth is always messy. It's complicated and painful, and sometimes it destroys the stories we've been telling ourselves about our lives. But it's also necessary. For 3 years, I tried to protect my daughter from the truth about her father. I thought I was being kind, being merciful, giving her a perfect memory to hold on to. But all I was really doing was denying her the right to know the real person, flaws and all. David wasn't a saint, but he wasn't a villain either. He was just a man who made mistakes, who hurt people he loved, who tried to fix things and ran out of time. And Sarah deserved to know that. Deserved to grieve the real person, not the fantasy I'd constructed. The same is true for all of us. The people we love will disappoint us. They'll make choices that hurt us. They'll be complicated and contradictory and impossible to fit into neat categories of good or bad. And that's okay. Because love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone fully, their light and their darkness, and choosing to keep loving them anyway. Or choosing to walk away, if that's what's healthiest. But either way, it's about truth. My daughter received a friend request from her dead father's account, and it led us down a path I never expected. A path that revealed affairs and catfishing and lies that had been buried for years. But in the end, it gave us something more valuable than the comfortable fiction we'd been living. It gave us the truth. And the truth, however painful, set us free. Marcus was right about one thing. Sarah deserved to know who her father really was. Not the sanitized version I'd created, but the whole person. The man who built tree houses and had affairs, who loved his daughter and betrayed his wife, who was trying to be better and simply ran out of time. Would you have told your child the truth? Or would you have kept the secret, protecting them from the complicated reality of who their parent really was? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the truths you've been hiding or the lies you've been told, please share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. Because here's what I've learned. We don't honor the dead by making them perfect. We honor them by remembering them as they were, flawed and human, and trying their best. And we honor ourselves by living in truth, even when that truth is painful. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, the people we love are never just one thing. They're everything all at once. And that's what makes them human. That's what makes all of us human.